Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the way my mind has been working when I've been watching what Donald Trump has been saying lately, because I've been plotting a worrying path from thinking, oh, Donald Trump doesn't treat his own supporters very well, to, this is how he starts World War III. Sounds a hell of a leap, doesn't it? Let me go through my process here. But first, for daily political commentary, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So, some of the things I'm seeing the Orange One saying at the moment puts me back in mind to how he was behaving before Biden stepped down. Back then, he was so confident of winning that he could relax and do the most insane things like make Vance his running mate, a move I assume was designed to make Trump look sane by comparison. In one bizarre speech, Trump has decried the glorification of violence. This from the man who has just described the January 6th fatal attacks on the Capitol as a day of love. But Trump's apparent disdain for violence was not related to the actual violence carried out by his supporters. No. He's attacking people who carry out imaginary acts of violence in video games. And he's talked about banning or massively curtailing video games. So Trump wants to ban video games, does he? One of his first acts will be to immediately piss off half the country and destroy a huge American industry and export. It will also annoy me as well. In reality, he was probably just making things up again, as he often does, rambling on. But some of the things he says are more horrifying than others and can't be so lightly dismissed. Trump, for example, has threatened to send in the army against certain communities. He describes these as cities where there has been a complete breakdown of law and order. What he means are places that didn't vote for him. He has recently described certain Democrats who led impeachment against him as a bigger threat to a free and fair election than foreign terrorists or illegal immigrants. In reality, the biggest threat to democracy in America is, and there are plenty of them, is the domestic terrorist and illegal president that is Donald Trump. But you just think about what he's saying, because we all know that Donald Trump's supporters and a good chunk of the country would approve of him taking very strong, aggressive action against foreign terrorists or illegal immigrants, as he describes them. So what exactly is he planning to do to law-abiding senators whom he doesn't like because they said he wasn't fit to be president? And this is the candidate who has threatened to deploy the army against political opponents on no stronger justification than he judges them to be lawless or a threat to his elections. Obviously, it remains to be seen if Trump can expect such orders to be carried out, but if he gives such orders and the military don't comply with what would be an illegal order, then the paranoid madman will presumably then see the country's top brass as part of the enemy within, and make moves to replace the command of the nation's forces with those loyal to him. History has seen this before. Of course, it may just be that Trump decides to sail very close to the wind, wait for a large-scale protest to erupt somewhere in a Democrat city, and then send in the National Guard using the Insurrection Act, without a hint of irony, a campaign of deploying excessive force immediately against protests, in order to either crush any form of dissent against him or just make parts of the country angry enough to rise up. Because at the end of the day, we keep saying it, if you don't allow people to protest peacefully, what are they going to do? Either would suit him, of course. I mean, in the latter case, he would just get more justification to deploy military force against his own people. Trump has been saying for several years that one of his priorities, were he to win power again, is basically a campaign of vengeance against those he sees as his enemies. Of course, he describes them as America's enemies. He means his enemies. He's clear that he thinks he didn't go far enough during his first term, that he was too soft. The problem is that his enemies don't just include senior Democrats or some lawyers and judges, but many of those who worked closely with him in the White House. His closest allies are trying to warn the public that Trump is a danger to America. And what more evidence do people need than the way he treated his closest supporters within the last week? Trump organised a rally at a ranch somewhere. Apparently it was quite hot. And you couldn't just drive to the ranch. So the supporters had to drive to one area, and then buses were laid on to sort of get them to the actual venue. But when it came time to leave, and there's a bit of a history of people wanting to leave Trump's rallies early, but even those who didn't, when it came time to leave, there were no buses available to take them back to their cars. Trump was willing to provide the resources to get people to his rally, which is what he wanted, but no interest in helping them to get back. As far as he's concerned, they could just trudge for hours in the heat or stay there and rot. He wasn't bothered. He had his photo opportunity. To hell with the walking props after the event. And this, you think, the people who went to all the effort, and even if buses had been laid on to get them back, it still would have been a very onerous trip. These were his most committed supporters. This is how Trump treats his most loyal cultists, with utter disdain. So the idea that he would lift a finger to help people who he doesn't even know if they voted for him or not is ridiculous. And of course, as I say, he's made it fairly clear how he will treat people that he has seen as voting against him. You know, remember that Donald Trump is openly in awe of Vladimir Putin. He admires the way he has an iron grip on his country, how he deals with a challenge to his rule. Oh, someone stands against you in an election, you just put him in prison. Brilliant, brilliant. This is what Trump wants to emulate. Many of the things he's been saying for some time now point to this ambition of not just being head of government again, but running the country in a very literal sense. Remember his promise to supporters? Vote for me one more time, you won't need to do it again. That is not because he plans to step down gracefully at the end of a second term, but because there will be no second term. There will be a coronation of King Donald I of America. No more democracy, not real democracy anyway. There will presumably be a show of holding elections, as happens in Russia, but anyone who could appear on the ballot next to him who would stand a chance of winning. In Trump's mind, again, whether he can actually do this is another matter, but in Trump's mind, they will simply be put into prison and fed some polonium tea. And there'll be no delays of criminal cases against presidential candidates running against Trump. Oh no, swift justice, straight into prison. I've seen American commentators like this week getting really excited about yet more criminal evidence about to be published. And you think, what's to get excited about? That this latest piece will finally get people to see Donald Trump for the gangster he is? There's already an overwhelming amount of evidence for that. More than most Americans can find the time to process. I don't see how one more release of evidence changes things. I get that those who are tribally loyal to Trump are never going to see him for who he is, right? Those people left stranded at his rally because he didn't care how they got home. Those people will still vote for him. What matters are the ordinary Americans who haven't been brainwashed into one tribe or another, who are more than happy to vote for the Republicans in one election, the Democrats in another, according to who they think will work out best. And there seems to be a worryingly large number even of these people who obviously aren't convinced that Trump wants to turn America into a fascist state where martial law exists. Because it seems obvious to someone like me, and yet there's clearly lots of just ordinary Americans who are not particularly tied to either candidate or either party who are not seeing it. You know, we're not talking about Trump's second term being like his first, where he simply denies Democrat voting states the federal help they need to deal with the many environmental disasters that hit America on a regular basis, but where he actively tries to destroy those states directly. He doesn't just wait for them to suffer and then says, I'm not helping you. No. He will want to instigate the suffering or try to. You know, the attempt could plunge the country into a sort of civil war. And you think about the global chaos that would cause if America has to... It's so busy sorting itself out, it cannot play any part on the international stage again. You know, you think about the opportunities that Russia and China in particular would see. Putin and Xi have just agreed a pact. And this pact says that Russia goes along with China's ambitions towards Taiwan. And in return, China goes along with Russia's ambitions towards Ukraine. If Trump wins next month, would you really be surprised in the slightest if China makes plans to invade Taiwan and then engages those plans pretty much as soon as Trump is installed in the White House again? And it doesn't even matter if this would ultimately work out well for China, you know, or it might work out how Ukraine has worked out for Russia so far. You know, it could be a miscalculation. But there is no reason for this pact between China and Russia to exist if China did not expect to make practical use out of it? After all, why would they tie themselves to Russia's failing plans in Ukraine unless they expected to get something in return? And what would China think gives them the practical opportunity to make use out of this? A second Trump term. You know, miscalculations and overreactions that could actually lead to Third World War that everyone is fearing right now. And even if not, yet more parts of the world made to suffer at the hands of megalomaniacs. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can join for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.